Hi, my name is Phil. I like talking about politics, and the Liberal Democrat leadership has announced that it is switching its position to full-on revocation of Article 50. In other words, if they were able to form a majority government, they consider themselves to have a mandate to simply cancel Brexit. So I'd like to discuss that, as well as Labour's position as well, which is still being firmed up. But first, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So, Joe Swinson has announced, as I say, that the Liberal Democrats will have a mandate to simply revoke Article 50 if they form a majority government. Now, I have to say, I think you would say that's definitely true for two reasons. First of all, the Liberal Democrats are massively unlikely to form a majority government. So, in actual fact, if people turned out and delivered a Liberal Democrat government, it's fairly clear to say that this is the thing that would do it. And given that it is likely to be in their manifesto, obviously any government that can form a majority government in Parliament has a duty to carry out their manifesto promises at the very least. The other thing is that, this won't be definite policy yet, because obviously it's subject to being voted in favour of at the party conference coming up soon. But I think we get the impression that it probably would be. So why are they doing this, and where does it place them for the general election? I think probably it's to make it clear what the difference is. I mean, there is a little bit of party politics about this. There's no doubt that the Liberal Democrats' position has always been to cancel Brexit. That's fair, that's consistent. They haven't really changed anything there. They were getting behind a public vote first. Now, I have to say, I would still back that position. I actually wouldn't like Parliament to simply revoke Article 50. Legally, they can. We all know this. I say we all know this, those who've bothered to read up on it. But especially after this amount of time, it does look bad, but it looks bad at all times. People have often said, what is the point of having a public vote if you're just going to ignore the result? Now, of course, we haven't ignored the result. We've spent 3 years trying to implement the result, and at the end of the day, it's Brexiteers who voted against it. You know, the Brexiteers, of course, are moaning at the Remainers voting against it. Well, the Remainers voted against it. Yes, a lot of Remainers voted against it because, do you know what? They're Remainers. But actually, an awful lot of Remainers actually voted for it. Otherwise, it'd have no chance. There aren't enough Brexiteers in Parliament to vote anything through. So actually, the fact that what stopped Brexit happening was Brexiteer votes is indicative of the fact that plenty of Remainers voted for the withdrawal agreement. And actually, I have to say, although I'm not in favour of the withdrawal agreement, it does do what was promised. It leaves the EU. It means we still stay in the single market. We still have that close relationship with the EU. It didn't involve what our final relationship would be. But the withdrawal agreement in itself did exactly what people campaigned for during the referendum. Exactly what they campaigned for. So for Brexiteers to have voted against it, and again, that's where it ultimately is. And that's who I blame. Like at the end of the day, in the 2017 general election, there were MPs who said leaving the EU would be damaging. Now, if constituents returned that MP, which of course they did because they're MPs now, on that platform, they voted for an MP that wanted us to remain in the EU. That's that simple. But there were Brexiteer MPs who stood on a platform of delivering a Brexit and a Brexit deal. They stood on that platform and then voted against it. They're the people that have let their constituents down. It's as simple as that. You know, the likes of these Brexit, including Boris Johnson and Jacob Rees-Mogg, at least the first two times, you know, they stood for election on a platform of we're leaving the EU and I'm going to vote for that, and then didn't. So go and moan at them, because we would have left. The Remainer MPs that voted against it couldn't stop this, couldn't stop it. It needed the hardline Brexiteers to vote against it. But that's an issue with those MPs. Someone was saying today on Twitter, and you can go with this, they were saying, you know, that we have the absolute right now to revoke because we spent 3 years trying to deliver on Brexit, and the people who say they support Brexit voted against it. So we've had 3 years of chaos, 3 years of job losses, 3 years of, as someone pointed out, the pound has lost more value since the Brexit referendum. The pound has lost more value than all of the money we have ever given to the EU in 45 years of being a member of it and its predecessor. Think about that. We have already lost more money than we ever gave to the EU. And that's counting the stuff we got back. You know, that's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. But I still say that those people who voted to leave, and yes, we know it was an illegal campaign. Yes, we know that they were duped. But nonetheless, they voted to leave, and many of them still want to leave. It wasn't their fault that MPs voted against that deal. And even though a great many of them are now chuntering and saying, oh, it was right for them to vote against the deal. Well, okay, if you think it was right for them to vote against Brexit, that's no problem. Let's vote against Brexit. But there are people out there who will say, well, I had my vote and it hasn't been implemented. And they should see that it hasn't been implemented by the people who said they would implement it. Don't go moaning at the people who never said they would implement it. They've done exactly what they said they were going to do, which is to oppose it. And they were voted in 2017 on that platform. So, but there are people that need that say and give them another public vote, particularly, not just another one, but, you know, with the options clearly known. We now know what the withdrawal agreement is. Put it on there. No deal, put it on there as well. Remain as an option, not just one question. I've already discussed this, but maybe the actual specifics of a question are probably worth going into in more detail if it ever happens. Well, at some point, I suppose it may happen. But have all the options there. Then there's no public vote, go back to Parliament and 3 or 4 more years of messing about. Parliament will have voted it through and pre-approved all the outcomes. That's what Labour have been offering for ages, for months. That's what Labour were offering. We will vote for this. You put the options on a ballot paper. We will support that. We could have had that ballot delivered by now. If when Labour started to say, look, do this, we could have already had it now. There's been enough time and it could have been sorted. And if people still believe that a majority of people want to leave the EU, that's what would now have happened. We'd have left the EU. And if the majority didn't, then sorry, we've changed our mind. As David Davis said, a democracy that cannot change its mind ceases to be a democracy. There we go. And of course, Nigel Farage and Jacob Rees-Mogg both saying that we should have another referendum. So that is my position there. I am not at all in favour of a government simply revoking Article 50. I would accept it if you were in a situation where somehow Boris Johnson or whoever had wangled a situation where either we were going to crash out with no deal. Let's say somehow we don't get an extension. And I know a lot of people were talking at the start of the week about France talking tough. France have said that they'd be in favour. I mean, they've not said anything definite, of course, they're not going to. But they have mooted the idea of a 2-year extension. So, you know, I think that's the issue for them. They don't want to keep pissing about a 2-year extension to reevaluate Brexit. The implication being, have another public vote, will you? And 2 years is plenty of time to have that, even if some MPs try to block its passage through Parliament. But let's say we didn't get an extension. We're up against it. Parliament has the choice: revoke or we'll go out with no deal. In that situation, I would accept revoke, but I would still want another public vote with those options. Because legally, there's nothing to stop us just re-triggering Article 50, but we shouldn't do that either. That's just dirty play. What we should do is just say, look, we've got the withdrawal agreement. We don't need to do any more negotiating. Have the public vote. If the public vote comes out and says, look, let's leave under this withdrawal agreement or leave with no deal, just apply it instantly. Apply it instantly and it's fine. Well, it's not fine because it'll be Brexit, but, you know, it's at least it will be sorted. And it will be sorted without a minority of Parliament hijacking the whole country. And then, of course, people will have no right to complain when the consequences befall us, because they won't be able to say, oh, well, we didn't vote for it. Because that'll be the thing. They'll change their tune. If we actually go out with no deal, the no deal Brexiteers will change their tune. They'll say, well, I never voted for no deal. No, you didn't. No one did. But then that goes away because that would mean people would have done. There's no danger of that, of course. Of course there isn't. But that's what I would be in favour of. Now, Labour's position is a little bit muddled at the moment. I'll do another video on that, hopefully when things come a little bit clearer. But if I'm honest, they may not become clearer until after the Labour Party conference. At the moment, it's a very weird position. And Jeremy Corbyn was sort of doubling down on it today. Basically, Labour's position, if they get a majority government, is they're absolutely backing a public vote with Remain as an option. That is there now. That is signed, sealed and delivered. The issue is that they want to negotiate another deal, as he calls it, a credible Brexit, which could take some time. And then he's not saying that the official Labour policy will be to oppose it, but in reality, the official Labour policy will be to oppose it. And the reason for that is that the Labour leadership, virtually all of them, have said they are campaigning for Remain no matter what. Even if Labour gets into government, even if Labour negotiates a withdrawal agreement, you know, even if it's hand-delivered to us by unicorns, they are campaigning to Remain. So the senior Labour leadership are campaigning to Remain. At best, the only people that will campaign for the Labour deal will be Jeremy Corbyn and maybe one or two other members of his shadow cabinet. And that's just going to look foolish. So I'm hoping there's still some travel to be made there. The reason, if you're wondering why this situation has occurred in the first place, is because of Len McCluskey. You know, the BBC are very diplomatic about the way they phrase it. They say there's disagreement amongst the unions, with Unite wanting a negotiated Labour deal. But it's not Unite wanting that, it's Len McCluskey. But again, I'll talk more about that in another video. So that's the situation as it is at the moment. That's the Liberal Democrat situation. I will go back to the beginning and say that I absolutely accept that if they were returned to a majority government, of course that's a mandate for revoking Article 50, if that's what it says in its manifesto, because at the end of the day, whenever any majority government forms in this country after a general election, their manifesto promises are the mandates that they have to follow, because the people have voted for them on that basis, or if they haven't, then that's foolish, because they should have done. But anyway, I hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.